Hey, it's Ina from Taproot Tarot, and this is my 100th video. I just started my channel earlier this year, I think in April, and I thought it was a bit of a milestone. I have my daily Drop 'em 78 challenge that I'm posting for now, and before I uploaded today's video, I realized I had 99 videos on YouTube, and I decided I wanted to make my 100th video more of a milestone than my usual daily post. So, the hang-up was that I was already scheduled to go out and see some music. I got to sit in on a live studio recording of some psychedelic Ozark folk music, which was really quite nice. But now it's late, and so I'm going to do a quick video for you. And it's one I've been wanting to do. About 6 or 7 months ago, Coyote Tarot posted a really great reintroduction video. And at that point, my channel was still pretty new. I had just recently done my tarot journey through the decks via Artist Simon from Hermit's Cave, so it didn't seem quite the right time to do another reintroduction at that point. But I think now is a good time on my 100th video. Like I said though, it's a little past my bedtime. It's Saturday night, but I do work on Sundays, so I'll try and make this nice and brief. I might not answer all the questions in great detail. The first one is, where are you from? And there are some sections, so the first section is the basics. And I'm from the Midwest, kind of all over the Midwest, or up and down the Midwest, I should say. Mostly grew up in Wisconsin, was born in Illinois though. But also consider myself from Minnesota, lived there for quite some time, and I moved around quite a bit. Out west, I lived in Arizona, Northern California, and even for a couple months in Oregon. And I have lived a bit in the Deep South as well. My family moved down to Alabama and then Georgia. So I've stayed a little bit in Alabama, and my whole immediate family now lives down in Georgia. So I've stayed there, or lived there briefly. But now I live in Missouri, so I'm still in the Midwest, but a little bit more southerly. And I should have specified that's the United States. Probably obvious from my accent, but just in case. And how did you come up with your YouTube name? My interest is really focused on the Tarot de Marseille and historical decks. And I kind of picture the Tarot de Marseille as a taproot because most of the tarots we use today are all derivatives of the Tarot de Marseille, including the RWS and the Thoth decks. And so I kind of picture the TDM as a central taproot with all of its derivatives kind of branching out from it. And then I guess you could see the more historical Italian decks and the Minchiate and other historical decks that came before the TDM as like the mycelium feeding into the taproot system. When I decided to start a YouTube channel based on my interest in historical decks, that was really the image that I had in mind, was of the TDM as this central figure with other tarots branching out from it. So some of the images I had in my head were, you know, trees and plants, things like that. So I went through a few naturalistic type names before I came up with the image of the taproot. Now there is a Taproot Tarot already on YouTube. It's not a channel that's active anymore. I didn't want to have to add a number behind the channel name or anything, so I wanted an original name, and that's where I decided to do a little bit of a play on words and spell route as in route, R-O-U-T-E, because tarot is also a path. So that way it's both a description of the TDM, my focus, and the tarot itself as a route or route. I do have a French follower on Instagram who was kind enough to point out to me that taproot means your fart in French, which I think is hilarious. And so we messaged back and forth having a bit of a chuckle about that. But my channel name isn't Taproot, it is Taproot. It's just spelled a little different as a play on words. How long have you been reading tarot? I got interested in tarot in 2019. I was taking a monthly class at a local witchy shop that was a year long, and at some point in 2019 the teacher brought out the Mother Piece Tarot, and I talk about this in my tarot journey through the decks, where for various reasons I wasn't interested in tarot when I was first exposed to it in like the 90s when I was a teenager and young adult. I did get into runes at that point, but tarot just didn't click for me until I saw the Mother Piece, and that was different from any deck I'd ever seen before, and it really seemed meaningful to me. And I know it's a deck that, you know, has some problematic aspects now, but it really was, you know, a turning point deck that had a great impact on a lot of people, and I think kind of changed what tarot could be and impacted the trajectory of tarot, I believe, and who tarot could be for. that day after first seeing the mother piece, I walked out of there with my first deck, which I purchased for myself. And that was the mother piece. In my tarot journey through the decks video, I mistakenly said that my second deck was the Wild Unknown, and I actually went back and looked at my purchase records, and that's not true at all. In 2020, I got into TDM and purchased several TDM decks and other PIP decks. When I was working with the mother piece, I wanted to kind of figure out, how to work with this as a self-development kind of tool. And so I got the mother piece books, of course, but I also got Esther Frankel-Tishman's book, Mindful Tarot, I think from that same witchy shop. Although that is written under her name, her previous name, Lisa. Through there, I found her YouTube channel, and she's the one who got me into historical decks, as well as the concept of reading playing cards and things like that. So by 2020, I was a big fan of the TDM, and those were my first decks. And then in 2021, I got the Wild Unknown. So I guess that kind of answers the next question, how did you get into reading tarot or oracle? But to answer a little more clearly, how long have you been reading tarot? Now, for years, I worked with tarot by looking up meanings, and I kind of figured I'd absorb those meanings and learn them in kind of a passive way, I suppose. But honestly, I really didn't. So it was sometime last year in 2024 that I decided to make more of a concerted effort to learn how to read the cards in front of me without necessarily looking up meanings. I still have decks where that's how I work with them. They aren't necessarily decks that I consider reading decks. And tell me how you differentiate between that. Do you consider it reading tarot if you are drawing cards and then looking at the guidebook? Because for me, that's kind of a different process from spreading out cards or even drawing one card and allowing that to spark a meaning. So to be technical, how long have you been reading tarot? Probably since 2024, even though I was working with tarot in other ways since 2020. And then I answered already, how did you get into reading tarot? And do you read for others? The answer to that now is no. I haven't gotten that far yet. My goal is sometime next year, maybe by next summer, to feel confident enough in my reading skills to read for others. Probably sometime before that, I'll get up the courage to start reading for friends. But I'm not there yet. Although I have to say, even though I don't have as much time as I wish I had to focus on tarot practice, I have really been noticing my understanding and reading skills growing exponentially. So that's been really cool. But Vincent Petici was right when he said that being a tarot scholar or a student of the tarot is totally different from being a tarot reader. And so I'm really interested also in the scholarship of tarot and studying the history and symbolism. But that does honestly take away from the time I spend practicing reading. And I'm fine with that. I'm not in any kind of rush or anything like that. It's just something that I do mostly for fun. But I do see myself one day becoming a proficient tarot reader. I just don't have a specific timeline for that, and that's okay. So the next section is about decks, and I probably won't answer all of these. Or maybe I will, we'll see. Do you use Oracle with tarot? Sometimes. I don't necessarily read Oracle by itself, but sometimes I think it's fun to either set the tone with an Oracle card or to finish up a reading with an Oracle card. I've even done a technique where you lay out Oracle cards as your spread, so I do find that engaging and meaningful, but it's not my focus. Tarot is definitely my focus. How many decks do I have? I'm really not sure. I really started collecting this year. I would say prior to 2025, I had maybe 2 or 3 dozen decks, and I've probably doubled that, if not more, this year. So in 5 years, I really only acquired probably a couple dozen decks, and then really got interested in collecting just this year. I would say I probably still have less than 100 though, even including Lenormand and playing cards. How do I store my decks? Kind of all over. I have a bookshelf in my living room that has some drawers, and I bought that bookshelf specifically to have drawer space for tarot decks. I have some shelves and other drawers throughout the house where they're kept as well. And the next few questions are more about, what kind of decks I like. So I prefer pip decks. I'm just not a big fan of illustrated pips. It's just not my reading style. I'm open to the concept, and in fact, my Drop 'em 78 challenge right now is with an illustrated deck, the Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot. But that's not my preference. So definitely pip decks and historical decks are my focus. I have some decks that I consider collector items that I have more as a reference or, you know, kind of as a tarot library, because I am really interested in the way that tarot has developed over time, and it's nice to have those decks in front of me to compare the different images. But as far as decks that I like to use, I prefer smaller shuffleable decks, so thinner cardstock, linen cardstock I really enjoy. And I'm always interested in having something different. If I consider my tarot collection to be somewhat of a library, I like having references that are different from each other. Something unique. But sometimes I do get tarot decks for the art. My taste in non-tarot art is very different from my taste in tarot art. So what I consider to be beautiful art in other contexts won't necessarily interest me in a tarot deck. So the bold colors or simplistic imagery of folk art really speaks to me more than a more sophisticated painting in most cases. And the next section is about my practice. My practice varies with my needs. I don't have a dedicated reading spot, although I'm working on setting one up. It's going to be a process. It kind of involves doing some major rearranging and hanging shelves and things like that. But that is a plan, and I have all the stuff I need to do. I just have to do it. But I do enjoy journaling. I've been using the ritual planner. I've had both the 1-card edition and the 3-card edition. This year I've decided to stop using the tarot planner, or for next year I should say. So I'm going to start using a dot journal and create more of a personalized journaling practice. The structure of the ritual planner was really good for me for the time that I've been using it, but I think I've kind of grown beyond that at this point. Especially now that I am reading more in spreads. I don't really read cards individually, which is the way the ritual planner is set up. One of the questions is, when do you turn to tarot cards for answers? And it's going to be mostly mundane things, or if I just have something that's really bothering me and on my mind. I've found, though, that it will not be in urgent situations or really highly stressful situations, because I've had some of those where, you know, even one where, you know, I've mentioned earlier this year that we had a pretty major upheaval in our family. A close family member was in a serious accident. They did survive. They are affected for life, though. And that has deeply affected the entire family. But for many hours they were missing because their injuries were so serious that the focus was not on contacting the family, it was saving their life. So we were, you know, texting and talking back and forth to each other, trying to find this person. And at one point I just remember thinking, it's really interesting that I have no desire to consult tarot cards right now. And I think that made me feel like, oh my gosh, does that mean I'm a fraud? That I wouldn't trust the tarot in this situation? And first of all, I still consider myself a novice reader, and so definitely I wouldn't trust my reading in that situation. Even if I weren't a novice, I'm still way too stressed out to read for myself in that situation. I wouldn't have consulted somebody else in a tarot reading in that situation either, and I don't think there's anything wrong for people who do at all. For me, that just didn't feel like a time that I'm drawn to use the tarot. So yeah, it made me wonder, like, am I not enough of a believer in the tarot? Or I think everyone's just different, you know, as far as what situations are helped by the tarot. But for me, tarot is more like about self-development or helping me process things that are on my mind. So the next question is about TarotTube. My favorite kind of content to post and watch, and it's going to be dorking out. I love to dork out to tarot, so I love learning new things. I love making new connections. And so anything that's historical, especially, or you know, focused on art history. But I also really enjoy real-world tips from people who read professionally, or just hearing about people's experiences as professional readers. I love that kind of content. I really enjoy posting and watching tags as well because of the storytelling that often goes along with that. I find it really interesting, and I find it a great mode of community building and getting to know each other. How did I get into creating a YouTube channel? Well, the more I got into tarot history, the more kind of connections I was making and all these little aha moments, and I really wanted to share those thoughts and be in community with people who have similar interests. And for me, the best way to do that was to start a YouTube channel. I decided that if I could come up with enough video ideas to get me started, then I could justify starting a channel. And I filled up quite quite a bit of a scrap paper with video ideas and decided, okay, I definitely have enough here, and I still haven't gotten to all of those video ideas yet. So I still have plenty more ideas to fall back on if I ever run out. But I was definitely encouraged by Simon from Hermit's Cave. He made a comment on one of his videos that, you know, if you have something to say, we all have our own perspective and input to add to the tarot community. That definitely influenced me as well. And finally, knowing what you know now about YouTube or TarotTube, is there anything you would do differently? And my answer to this question just made me realize I have not been mic'd for this whole video, so the sound quality is going to be kind of garbage, and I am so sorry. But what I would have done differently was getting a better mic to begin with. I have a fairly decent camera, and thought, you know, that's good enough as far as a mic goes. And I don't mind watching other people's videos where they don't have a mic necessarily. But my old videos that are not mic'd, the quality is so much less than once I finally got a mic. I don't have a great mic, it's just a wired little Sony clip-on. It's sitting right here, but it's not plugged in. And I'm not re-recording this video, so apologies for this, this sound quality. I've also tried a wireless mic for my Minchiati collection video, and that sound quality wasn't the best, so I went back to my wired lavalier. If you have a microphone you really like and want to post that suggestion for me, please do, because the wired mic does get in the way, and I'm constantly, you know, running into it and creating feedback or background noise and stuff too. So I am open to suggestions there. But yes, I definitely would have just gotten a mic right from the beginning. Again, I don't at all mind watching other people's videos that aren't recorded with a separate mic, but for my own, I just really noticed a big difference once I added that. And I can't believe I just recorded this whole video without being mic'd. That's hilarious. But anyway, I appreciate you being here. Thanks to Coyote Tarot for this great set of questions. Again, I will put those in the description and link the original video so that you can check that out if you like. And I look forward to seeing other responses to that. I know a few people did respond to that original with a hashtag. I couldn't find it. So if you know what hashtag people have used to respond to this video, please let me know and I will add it. And thank you to you for supporting my channel, for being interested. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to have 100 videos up now. All right, thanks so much, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.